Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Cora. Welcome to my library. I finished the Elfstones of Shannara last night. Let me just tell you, I was an emotional train wreck. By the end of this video, I will give a star rating, so like anywhere from 1 to 5 stars. Obviously it won't be 1 star. This was an incredible book and I loved it very much. Once I explain all these things, you guys will probably see my reasoning behind that rating. We all need to give props to Terry Brooks for how much thought and effort he put behind all of the war components. He actually explained the battle strategies. Like, for some reason, whenever I'm writing action scenes in my own book, it's really hard for me. Like, I don't know how to explain, like, how they're fighting. Like, I don't know how to say the moves that they're doing, you know, like the punches and stuff, and, like, where they're running. It's just really hard for me to write action scenes. So the fact that he was able to, like, write, like, pages worth of them, like, running and fighting and, you know, describing in detail everything that's happening is just really impressive, and I really liked that. Right from when the elves leave Arborlawn to go to the Sarandinin to fight all the way until the big final battle at Arborlawn, he explained all the battle strategies that they had. You know, Steve Jan said the Free Corps had his cat and mouse game where they would lure the demons away from the big group so that they could attack them in smaller groups. You know, that's what they did in Bandra, and that's what they did on their way to Arborlawn throughout the forests as their numbers were getting smaller and smaller. They explained the demon battle plan back at Bandra. They distracted the elves with the smaller force while the larger force, the bigger, badder force, came in from behind from the Kensrose Mountains to completely wipe them out. It was just like, wow, like he actually is explaining battle strategies. He's not just saying, oh yeah, like these guys, you know, fought and these guys won, and like, yay, you know? Like I loved it. I loved it. I approve. They talked about, before the final battle at Arborlawn, they're talking about the measures that they took for protection. The Carolyn. I spent like a good third of the book being like, I don't understand what the Carolyn is. What is it? I thought at first it was a stone wall surrounding the city of Arborlawn, but then I realized, oh, it's a plateau! A 400-foot high plateau that Arborlawn sits on, and there's this little rampway that goes down along the side called the Elfitch that I'll talk about later, and that kind of leads them down into the lower part of Arborlawn. I understand that now. It was a little late in the game for that, but, you know, I'm just core things. They talked about how the Carolyn is a, like, natural barrier because it's a 400-foot high cliff, you know? You figure that's going to be a little difficult for the demons to climb up the side, even though they did that anyway. But they also said that it would be a good, like, defensive measure to push them off the cliff. Because, think about it, like, even though they're demons, they're not going to survive a 400-foot fall. Like, there's no way. So, that's cool. You know, it wasn't just where Arborlawn happened to be situated. They chose that place for a reason. The Rilson, that's also a natural barrier because it's a very kind of like wily river. That's why they had to have a bridge that goes from Arborlawn to the area that takes you to the Sarandinin, because otherwise they wouldn't be able to just walk through the water. That's why it kind of posed a threat to the demons, because it was hard to navigate. It's hard to navigate even in good conditions. The Elfitch, like I said earlier, is the rampway that goes along the side of the Carolyn up to Arborlawn. They say that there's like different ramps. I don't know what that means. I wasn't really clear on that. I think in my head it sounded to me like there's 7 levels. Like you walk up the steps and then you reach the first platform, and then you go up the next steps and you reach the second platform, and you just keep going until you get to the top of the Carolyn. That especially made sense when Browork, the dwarf, was talking about how he rigged the Elfitch so that when the demons were walking up there, he could pull it and they'd all fall to their death. That was cool. I liked that. That's actually showing that he planned ahead and he thought about this. I liked how he brought in, like, all the different people, you know? Like, it wasn't just the elves alone fighting against these demons. There was the dwarves, who had always been their allies. There was the trolls, who kind of hated them, but they agreed to fight with them anyway because, you know, their lives were at stake too. There was Calahorn, who were kind of jerks in this situation because they only sent the Free Corps, which were 600 men, pretty much all of them ended up dying by the end of this battle, except for Steve Jans, which I'm so happy about. I was so worried that Steve was gonna die, but he survived. I'm like, yes, my man! The bromance between him and Andrew is real. There was the Free Corps and then the Old Guard, which was only 250 men. I'm like, really? These are compromises, Calahorn. What are you doing? Why aren't you sending the Border Legion? Get in the right lane! I don't like Calahorn. They make me mad. I really liked how he brought in the Wing Riders, because I didn't think that they were really going to play like a major part in all this. I just thought that Perk was just a cute little side character to help Amberly and Will on their journey to the Wild Run. But no, they connected him to the Battle of Arborlawn by bringing in his Uncle Dane. His rock ends up dying, but Perk ends up coming with his grandpa's rock that he's borrowing, with Amberly and Will and all of them, and he's like, hey, I'm here to save y'all, like, thank me later. I thought that was cool how Brooks connected just this side character and made him a lot more important than I thought he was. Arion's death seemed to me like hubris. If you guys don't know what hubris is, it's a literary term that means excessive pride or arrogance that is fatal. That's what I think happened with Arion. Arion was so stubborn and so prideful about what happened to, like, with Amberly. Like, he refused to forgive her, he refused to forgive Ander for siding with her, that now he's dead. And he doesn't get to be buried in a great, funeral procession because he was arrogant and stubborn and prideful. Now his grave is unmarked on a cliffside, all alone, while his father gets to be buried in wherever they bury kings. He was just kind of a jerk this whole time. He wasn't very smart in his way about, war. Like, war, there's more to it than just fighting. That's what I was talking about earlier when Terry Brooks was showing all the battle strategies and the alliances and stuff. He showed the true mechanics behind war. So I didn't really feel bad when he died. I just kind of felt pity for Ander and Eventine. But when Eventine died, I actually cried. And I just sat there for a minute. I'm like, okay, I need to get myself together. This is just a book. But it was really sad because I think Evantine's like 80-something years old. And he's been king for a long time. He lost his youngest son, and then he lost his oldest son, and he lost his closest friend, and he was on the verge of losing his entire kingdom. And then he gets mauled by the dog that he's trusted, like, for so many years. I told you Minx was the changeling. That's the true tragedy, because with tragedy comes irony. Like, they kind of go hand in hand. In order for there to be an actual literary tragedy, there has to be irony. There's two components of irony in this. The first component is that he's the king, and everyone thinks that kings have everything. He did not get to do that. We don't really know what happened to his wife. She probably died a long time ago. He lost, like I said, so many people and things that he cared about that it broke him. He was a king who lost everything. On his deathbed is where the second component of the irony comes in. This is the part that made me cry because I just felt so bad. Ander was sitting there with Eventine as he's dying, and he goes, how's Amberly? Where is she? Is she okay? And Ander didn't have the heart to tell him that she turned into the Elcrees, so he told her, yeah, she's resting, like, she's fine. And then it said that he smiled, and then he died after that. So he died thinking that Amberly was okay when she wasn't. And that just, that broke my heart. Like, I know it was good because he died happy, but it's just so sad. That's another thing that he lost, his granddaughter. Speaking of Amberly becoming a tree, that's a really original idea. She turned into a tree! I remember the first time I watched that episode of the show, I was like, what? I was so confused. I didn't understand the concept that she was the seed the whole time. That the seed that the Elcrees gave her was just, to help her, be motivated to go to the Wild Run. I didn't get it. I was really confused. And then after the scene where Amberly has her big epiphany, she realizes, this is what I was born to do. This is the reason why she hasn't chosen anyone female to be chosen for the last 500 years, because she was waiting. She was waiting for the right person to pass on her seed to, and to make her the Elcrees. That part made me really sad, because I knew it's time, like, Amberly's approaching her end. And it actually might not be her end, it may just be her beginning as a new being, as the Elcrease. But still, like, I'm so mad about that. I feel so bad for Will. Like, he didn't deserve that. That's what bothers me about the climax, is because there's all this build-up. And then the scene where they arrive in Arborlawn, when Perk brings them with the rock genuine, it just happens so fast. Like, they literally land, Amberly gets off the rock, she goes towards the Elcrease, Will's screaming for her, and Eritrea is keeping him restrained, saying, like, let her go, like, she chose to do this. And then he gets off to fight the demons with the Elfstones, and then he turns and sees that the tree disintegrated and she's taking its place. That was really fast for me. Like, you know, this whole time he's been taking it at a very slow pace, which is fine. Sometimes the amount of detail would get a little irritating, you know, I'd kind of get, like, lost and kind of zone out, you know, I'd be like, oh, I just reread this like 3 times. I still love how immersive this is. That's what I'm saying, is that the climax was so out of place. It was very abrupt. Like, Will and Amberly didn't even get to say goodbye. Like, he just saw her walk away and turn into the tree. I feel like her destiny itself was the right decision. It was poetic justice. If you think about it, the Chosen might have still been alive if Amberly hadn't left. We know that Amberly was the only one that the Elcrease talked to after the night that the Chosen were initiated. Like, she talked to all of them the night that they were initiated, you know, like, welcome. But after that night, she wouldn't talk to any of the other Chosen except for her. And that's because she knew that she wanted Amberly to be her successor. If Amberly hadn't left, the Elcrease could have told her that she was dying, that the Forbidding was going to crumble, and that she would have to take the seed to the Bloodfire and all that. It's possible that the Chosen would have lived because she would have warned them that the Forbidding was going to start crumbling and the demons were going to get out and try to kill her. They could have gotten reinforcements for the guards surrounding the palace and all that. Wet could have still been alive, Manx could have still been alive, the Chosen could have lived. This is all what if, but still. I feel like this is partially Amberly's fault because she was selfish, she gave in to her fears, she didn't like that she was becoming somebody else who she was meant to be, so she freaked out and left. She abandoned her job as the Chosen, and because of that, all of her friends died because the Elcrease couldn't communicate with them. They didn't understand. The only reason that Lauren knew she was dying was because he saw the signs in her leaves, and out of like a last resort of desperation, she grabbed them all and told them. But it was too late. The demon had already gotten into the palace, and he killed them later. So I think it's poetic justice that the thing that she ran away from, she is now that thing. I feel like finally the Chosen got justice because Amberly gave back what she took from them. Another literary term, situational irony. If you guys don't know what that is, it's a type of irony where characters do something that they think is going to get a certain outcome, but it ends up coming out with a completely different outcome. And I feel like the best example of this from this book is Morag and Malin-Row's face-off. Morag and Malin-Row are the witch sisters of the Hollows in the Wild Run. Morag controls the east and Malin-Row the west. The two of them hated each other, and it's revealed why this is. Apparently there was a man that both of them wanted, and Malin-Row ended up killing him. Morag actually didn't know that Malin-Row killed him. That's what finally kind of lit the flames for the fight. Literal flames, actually. The entire keep, whatever you want to call it, caught on fire. So Malin-Row and Morag face off, and both of them have been fighting each other, you know, for however many years, a long time. Both of them were thinking, oh, I'm going to kill my sister and I'm going to have the Hollows all to myself. But in fighting each other, they set the fire and they both burned to death. I feel like that's a good way to do it because it's balance. That's what I'm actually getting into right now. It's perfect. Terry Brooks made it very clear that the elves' philosophy of life was that you come from the earth, and when the time is right, you have to give them something back. That may be alluding to death, that may be alluding to just serving them like Amberly was in Havenstead, teaching the kids how to care for the earth. Whatever it is, you owe the earth something because they gave you life. That's kind of like balance, you know? Just like the elves wanted to give something back to the land, Terry Brooks gives something to the story that he took. This is one of those things. Morag and Malonroe both were causing, trouble in the Hollows, but now they're both dead. So now the Wild Run isn't so scary anymore. The fact that Arion and Ander are brothers, Arion dies, Ander lives. Amberly is taken from Will, but he gets to be with Eritrea. Even with the dogs. Eventine's dog Manx dies, but Hebel's dog Drifter gets to live. You see what I'm saying? That's so cool. He literally follows the philosophy that he created. I've mentioned Lord of the Rings probably several times throughout my discussions because this is a fantasy book with elves, and trolls and all that, so obviously it sounds like Lord of the Rings. Super different, but one similarity that I just couldn't help but notice is the fact that they both feature giant birds that are very helpful. Brooks actually avoided the plot hole that Tolkien made because everyone's always like, why couldn't they just use the eagles to carry Frodo to Mount Doom to drop the ring in? That's supposedly like a major plot hole in Lord of the Rings, is that the eagles are coming. Like, why didn't they just use the eagles to solve all their problems? Well, Brooks did use the rocks to solve all their problems. Perk literally carries them across the Westland to Arborlawn. Freaking Dane gave Alanon his rock, Dreamer, and Alanon got to fight the Dagdamor up in the air. The Dagdamor was on his giant bat. That was really cool. I've never heard of a giant bat before. And Alanon was on Dreamer. And they're, fighting up in the air. That was really cool. But that's what I'm saying. The rocks are coming! Like, the eagles are coming! Like, he did that! He fixed that plot hole. This is just a stupid little pet peeve. You may have noticed that Brooks used one word at least 30 times. Lanced. Lanced. It means to launch or throw. And most of the time he used it to describe Alanon's blue fire coming out of his hand. Like when he would shoot bursts of blue flames at demons and stuff. It bothers me that he used that word at least like 30 times. Like, I just kept seeing it over and over again, and I was like, oh, I hate this word now! Like, why do you keep using it? Find a different word! That's one of the things that I try to do with my books. I try to find synonyms. It bothers me when people just reuse the same words, It makes it kind of feel like it's not at your reading level. Sally said, Jimmy said, Carly said, like, use different verbs. Say, like, Carly whispered or Shay mumbled or something. Like, you know what I mean? Don't reuse the same words, people! This is not a 3rd grade reading level book. I don't even know what this is reading level wise. This is, maybe college level reading, okay? Just had to get that off my chest. Future advice, Terry Brooks or any other writers, use synonyms. I ship Eritrea and Will. To me, throughout the book, Will and Amberly should have had like a brother-sister relationship. In the show, I liked them more as a couple because of the way that they developed their relationship. But in the book, they just described her like a little kid. Just the way that they described that he held her, like, to me that was just, saying brother and sister, but then she kisses him and he says that he loves her or whatever, and it's like, I just didn't feel like Amberly and Will had the right chemistry. Eritrea and Will have the right chemistry because they're more alike. Amberly was more like, Will's kind of like, too, because, he's a healer and he wants to help people. He was still more like, alright, like, let's get him, like, huh! But Amberly was like, no, like, I'm just gonna stay here in Havenstead and chill with my kids. Eritrea probably, if she had been chosen to go on this journey earlier, she probably would have been like, okay, let's go. I know opposites attract, but still, I just feel like Will and Eritrea have better chemistry. That's why I'm glad that at the end they alluded that they would get together, because she grabs his hand and he doesn't pull away. Like, she was there for him. It's so cute. I'm like, yes, my ship has sailed. Now I'm gonna finally give my scale of 1 to 5 stars on this book. After all the things that I've inspected, I'd have to say this book gets a 4.5 star rating. 4.5 is a really good rating. That's almost a 5-star rating. So, good job, Terry Brooks. I loved it. I'm just giving constructive criticism. I will definitely be reading The Elfstones of Shannara. I don't know when I'll get it. Probably the next time I go to Barnes & Noble. I have a $20 gift card that I got for Christmas, and I'm like, yes! Love Barnes & Noble! There we have it. The review for The Elfstones of Shannara. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you haven't seen my Before I Read discussion for The Fairest by Marissa Meyer, go check that out. My next video will be a story time on Wednesday, and I don't know if I'll be doing a book video on Saturday. I know I won't be doing a discussion for The Fairest, but maybe I'll do a tag. Maybe I'll do a rant like I did earlier, saying like, don't reuse the same word over and over again, you know what I mean? That's what rants would be. So, I'll think about it. We'll see. But as of now, happy Saturday. I hope you have a great weekend, and I'll see you on Wednesday. Bye!